I don't really focus on like the result of things. I just focus on like the day-by-day process. Then whatever happens, happens.
And I think he did a phenomenal job this offseason. That really started in January and February. And then certainly as we got into having, real practices in May, his growth has been tremendous.
The Browns' quarterback room just got exposed. And not because somebody officially named a starter, not because a depth chart leaked, and not because one practice clip suddenly solved the whole competition. It got exposed because Shedeur Sanders spoke like a quarterback who understands the pressure. Andrew Berry talked like a general manager who sees real growth. And the QB tracker told fans just enough to start arguing without telling the full story. That is the dangerous part. Cleveland fans are staring at numbers, quotes, practice reports, and media updates, trying to figure out if the Browns already know where this thing is headed. And right now, the shocking truth is this. The Browns may not be looking for the loudest quarterback, the most famous quarterback, or even the quarterback with the cleanest public stat line. They're looking for the one who can handle the entire operation. That means processing the defense, getting the ball out, avoiding negative plays, building chemistry, controlling the huddle, and staying focused when the whole city is debating every throw. That is why this Shedeur Sanders and Andrew Berry update matters so much. It gives us a real look into what Cleveland is watching behind the scenes. The event started after Browns minicamp wrapped up, with players heading into a 6-week break before training camp. That break sounds peaceful, but for this quarterback room, it is anything but quiet. Fans are already asking who is ahead, who is falling behind, and what the team's real plan is for 2026. Deshaun Watson is still in the picture. Shedeur Sanders is pushing hard. Dillon Gabriel is still part of the conversation. Taylor Green is there as a developmental piece, but the main tension is clear. Is Cleveland preparing to give Watson the first shot because of experience, or is Shedeur closing the gap faster than the team expected?
I think it's real amazing. I think the team, we got togetherness for sure, and we're gonna keep that going in the offseason. We're all gonna get together at some point and be able to get work in, and build those relationships even more. So I'm excited for that.
Shedeur's interview gave fans the first major clue. When asked about his offseason and whether he had even had time to breathe, his answer was simple. He said waking up every day was enough breathing for him. That is not a flashy answer, but it tells you everything about his mindset. He's not acting like he already made it. He's talking like someone who knows every single day is part of the job. Then he was asked if the work was paying off. He did not chase the easy headline. He said he doesn't focus on results, he focuses on the day-by-day process, and whatever happens, happens. A young quarterback in Cleveland cannot survive by chasing reactions. He can't live and die by every practice tracker or every debate show segment. He has to stay locked into the work, and that is exactly what Shedeur sounded like. Here's the part nobody is talking about. Berry's comments hit even harder next to that answer. Berry said Shedeur had an excellent spring and that his growth has been tremendous. He talked about how a young quarterback learns a lot in his first year, then gets a chance to identify what he needs to work on. Then, Berry said Shedeur did a phenomenal job starting back in January and February, and that once real practices began in May, the growth became obvious. That is not random praise. That is the general manager telling you the organization sees real development. When the player sounds locked in and the front office sounds genuinely encouraged, that combination means something. The Browns are not just managing expectations anymore. They're watching something grow, and that changes everything heading into training camp.
As a rookie player, and particularly at quarterback, you learn a lot your first year, and especially if you don't start a full season, start 6, 7, or I guess you start 7 games, and you kind of go through the year. It's adjustment going to the NFL, and then you get a chance to catch your breath and say, okay, well, here are the things that I need to work on, here are the things I need to learn.
And the key word is growth. Not hype, not popularity, not name value, growth. That is the word that separates a quarterback who is just interesting from a quarterback who might actually become part of the plan. The Browns are not simply asking whether Shedeur can make a few highlight throws. They're asking whether he's improving in the exact areas that decide whether a quarterback can run an NFL offense. Can he process faster? Can he get the ball out? Can he avoid sacks? Can he take what the defense gives him? Can he lead the team without forcing the game? That is where Todd Monken's comments from Browns coverage also connect to the story. Reports out of minicamp say the competition is still going, and Shedeur has been praised for quicker processing and improved decisiveness, two areas that matter heavily for avoiding negative plays and keeping drives alive. That's important because Shedeur's biggest test is not whether he can make the exciting play. People already know he has playmaking ability. The question is whether he can make the boring play at the right time over and over again until the offense starts to trust him. Here is the part nobody is talking about. The QB tracker is useful for content, but it is not the same thing as the Browns' actual quarterback evaluation. A tracker can count completions, touchdowns, and interceptions, but it cannot always tell you whether the quarterback made the right read, whether the receiver ran the route correctly, whether the protection broke down, whether the defense was playing soft coverage, or whether the throw came in a real team period or a less intense practice setup. That is why fans should be careful before treating those numbers like the final verdict.
So we're all very excited to see, Shedeur's, fall camp, preseason, things of that nature when we get into padded situations, live situations, less scripted. But his growth has truly been phenomenal.
The tracker had Shedeur at 79 completions on 113 attempts with 5 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. Watson at 90 completions on 133 attempts with 3 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. But the creator immediately questioned the accuracy, saying some numbers did not fully match what he personally saw. And that is actually the bigger point. The Browns are evaluating more than what the public can count. That is why Barry's words carry more weight than any fan-made chart. Barry is not judging Shedeur from a spreadsheet. He is judging him from meetings, practice reps, coaching feedback, and how he responds when mistakes happen. If Barry says the growth has been phenomenal, that means Shedeur has checked real boxes inside the building. It does not mean he has won the job, but it does mean the Browns are watching him closely and they like the direction. Here's the part nobody is talking about. Watson is not out of this race either. Recent Browns coverage suggested he looked like one of the most consistent quarterbacks in spring practice. Strong 11-on-11 work, mobility, deep ball accuracy. That is exactly why this competition is genuinely complicated. Watson still has the experience, the veteran profile, and the contract history. The tracker creates debate. The film decides the job. And right now, both quarterbacks are giving Cleveland something real to think about.
Unfortunately for us, 24 didn't go the way that we anticipated. In no world did we expect to be a 3-win team entering that season. And so at that point, we knew that, we were going to have to pivot. We were going to have to pivot strategically. We were going to come into a situation where, our draft resources were replenished, and we were going to have to transition away from many players that our fans had come to love and had granted us, playoff success in 2020 and 2023.
Watson is not only competing against Shedeur, he is competing against his own past in Cleveland. Browns fans do not want to hear forever about what he used to be in Houston. They want to see what he is right now. If he comes into training camp and clearly looks like the best quarterback, he can win the job. But if Shedeur keeps improving every week, the pressure on Cleveland becomes very real, very fast. That is where this offseason becomes more than a quarterback competition. It becomes a test of the Browns' identity. Are they still trying to squeeze one more run out of Watson, or are they preparing the ground for Shedeur? Are they making the safest Week 1 decision, or are they building towards something more sustainable? Those are the questions behind every practice report and every quote this summer. Here's the part nobody is talking about. Shedeur's answers about team building actually matter. He talked about togetherness. He praised the rookie receivers. He made his answers about the team's development, not just his own. And he said if he was thinking about summer plans before the final practice, his mind would be in the wrong space. Coaches love that. It tells them the work is still the priority. This is where it gets dangerous. Young quarterbacks can start believing the outside noise before they've actually won anything in the NFL. They start thinking about the spotlight and the storyline instead of the next practice. Shedeur has not done that, and that matters more than any tracker number. Training camp is the real separation point. Barry made that clear when he talked about being excited to see Shedeur in padded situations, preseason games, and less scripted football. Minicamp is controlled. Training camp gets physical. That is where Watson's experience could matter most. A veteran should look calmer when the defense gets complex. He should know where to go with the football. If Watson does those things clearly better than everyone else, Cleveland has an easy early decision. But if Shedeur keeps rising, the Browns face a much harder choice than they expected. So, the debate is wide open. Is Shedeur already closer to the starting job than people want to admit? Is Watson just trying to hold off the future for one more season? Because Cleveland fans have heard promises before. They have watched hope turn into frustration before. But this one feels different. The future is standing right there in the building, and the Browns have to decide whether they're protecting the past or finally preparing for a new era at quarterback.